Okay, you guys, so the black and white decks have been something that has, I've always owned a black and white deck for a while now, but I've recently become a little bit more into it, and I think it was probably the vintage deck that I'm going to show you, which I'm actually going to start the whole video with that deck first, that kind of got me into more of the black and white decks. There's just something about them. They look good. They're just different, without as much color. Like, I love myself a bright deck, but I think a black and white deck just looks a little bit better. So I'm going to show you guys what I have in my collection. I have a couple Oracle decks. Actually, I think I only have one. I think I only have one Oracle deck. The rest of them are tarot. So I'm going to start with my most vintage of the batch, and then we'll just go from there. So these are not in order. They're not in order as how I obtained them. I'm just going to pull them random, but I want to start with my vintage. So the vintage deck that I have in my collection is the Dutch Waite by Bert Backer. So this deck is a vintage. It's a vintage deck, and I found this copy off of eBay. I've always seen it like popping up when I would do my eBay searches for Rider-Waite's and whatnot, and it never really caught my eye. So it's kind of funny how like I'll have seen this deck floating around for some time, but it just never caught my attention. And then recently I saw it and I was really interested, and then I just like, when I get an interest on something, I get obsessed. And then when I get obsessed, it's like I have to have a copy. So this particular deck, I found it, and it was for $45, I want to say. It was very, very cheap. I couldn't believe it. When I went to the listing said in the description that it was missing one card. So I was just shocked anyway that missing one card out of the whole deck would bring the price down so much, because usually on eBay you will see this deck pop up and it's usually priced anywhere from $100 to like a $200 range. So it's usually like somewhere between there. I think right now there's currently one on eBay for $195 if I remember correctly. So this one was missing the Three of Cups, and you know me, I love to do a little bit of a DIY, so I knew that's no big deal. I can fix this problem, no big deal. So I ended up purchasing it for 45 bucks, and it was the best thing ever. Let me get the cards out. So the box is very, very much well loved. It even has a name on the flap. I think it's the other side though. I tend to open this deck on the wrong side, but yeah, it says it has a name, and then it was actually dated. So this is probably the date that this person received the deck, and it's May 22nd, 1974. So I always thought that that's kind of a fun little thing about these. I love these vintage decks. There's usually something about it. So this little baby was from the 70s. Okay. So the cards themselves came with 2 blank cards, which I used one of them because it was missing one. So I knew, okay, it has a blank card. I can totally turn this into my Three of Cups. So I have one blank card left over. It's kind of bent, so it has like a weird little fold in it. The card backs of this deck are, they were white. They're a little bit aged now, but they were white with the pink. And what I ended up doing with this one was every card is there except for the Three of Cups. So what I ended up doing was I DIY'd my Three of Cups. I printed out a black and white version of the Three of Cups, and I ended up just taping it to the blank card. So that was my DIY for fixing this deck. So now I have a full deck, and it's a little oddball. I mean, obviously it's like the whitest card, but I mean, I don't care, because to me it was like, I'm just gonna use it for readings anyway. I mean, I collect decks, but I'm not like that person where it's like, oh, I have it and I'm not gonna touch it. I knew full well I was gonna be using this deck. So I have a full deck now of my Bert Backer Dutch Waite, and I'm very happy with it. But I love this card. I love these cards, you guys. So it's, I think they're a little bit bigger than the standard tarot because they feel much wider. So I think they're a little bit wider. But basically the line work, let me get a little bit closer to my camera. So the line work in this deck is really clear. The font matches the backs. So the backs have that pink little hint to it. So the font, the title cards are all in pink as well. So it has just a tiny little pop of color, but the images themselves are black and white, and the line work is really, really clear. So the, you know, you could see every detail of the images. Let's see if that'll, let me hide my face. Maybe it'll focus. I don't know. So yeah, you can see all of the details, and that's kind of one thing that I love about these black and white decks is that you see the details in the cards. And sometimes it's kind of like it gets a little bit washed away. Sorry, my nails are all crappy. I can't paint my nails for shit, you guys. But sometimes the details get washed out by the colors. And so when you see a black and white deck, you really kind of see every little piece. So freaking love it. And then I love how the darker ones, the blacks, the background is black like that. I just think it makes it look even more scary. Like look at the Tower and the Devil card. I just think it looks so cool. And my little DIY card, let me show you guys up close what it looks like. There it is. So all I did was I printed out a 3 of Cups and cut it, made it fit, and taped it to my card. So $45 for a vintage deck that is usually priced at like anywhere between $100 and $200. So not bad. That's quite a bargain in my opinion. Okay, so, sorry, I have to make sure this flap catches it. I think I'm gonna have to tape this box up because it's just not as sturdy as it once was, I'm sure. Okay, so let's talk about the next tarot decks. So I have the Absolute Tarot. I had to write the name of it on the box because I just wanted to make sure I remembered what it was called. The Absolute Tarot. So it came in just a plain white tuck box from Etsy, and I bought this on Etsy. And it's the most gorgeous deck. So like I said, if you wanted a vintage Burt Backer Dutch weight, you could still find them on Etsy every once in a while, but you're probably gonna have to pay a couple $100. If you don't want to do that, you could find an Etsy deck for much cheaper. I think this one was like $25. And it's called the Absolute Tarot. The card backs are so pretty. So you have the black and white, looks like the astrology, galaxies, that kind of thing. And it says Rider-Waite right here in the corner. Gorgeous backs. I love that. That's probably one of my favorite parts about this deck. And then the cards themselves are black and white. Now these are very, very white considering like the Burt Backer being more of like an off-white. You can see the difference. So they're very white. The only thing that I don't like about this deck is the way that the person, when they created the images, they didn't do a very good job with cutting the borders, because some of the numbers are a little bit cut off. Let me see if I can find one. It's more so in the Minor Arcana. So you can see that 7 is a little bit cut off. And then you could see the borders on these cards are kind of off. So sometimes they're a little bit too cut, like cut too much, and then other times you could still see the border. So I would say it was kind of a sloppy job the way that they did it, unless there was only a certain amount that they could stretch the image. I don't know how people do how they make them. But that's the only issue I would have with this deck. Otherwise, it's perfect. And so if you're looking for a black and white Rider-Waite deck, this is a really good option for you guys to go for. You can totally find it on Etsy. You can just Google search on Etsy black and white tarot. That's kind of how I found it. Every once in a while I like to go on Etsy and just search for Rider-Waite tarot decks or clone decks. And this one popped up, or you can just search the Absolute Tarot and I'm sure it'll come up. So really, really cool deck, and it's just black and white, and the line work on this is pretty good. It's a little bit, maybe just a tiny bit blurry compared to like my Burt Backer deck, but to be honest, it's really not that bad. It's really, really not that bad. So I really like it. The cardstock itself is really like smooth, so the cards, like, they really blend easily. It's smooth, but it's not glossy, so I don't know how else to explain it. It feels kind of silky, I guess you could say. And I love it too because, like, with the scary cards, it has that black background like that. So I don't know, that's what I love about these black and white decks, because it just really pops. But yeah, I love it. It's a cute, funky little deck. So if you're looking for something black and white, cheap, like $25, maybe like 30 bucks plus, you know, 30 something dollars when you're adding shipping. But it was a fun little purchase. So that is the Absolute Tarot, and you can find it on Etsy. I will link it in the description box, so hopefully I'll remember, but I'll link it in the description. And I think she has other decks that she created too, so I have to double check, but I don't think that there's an option for a different kind of a box. I think it was just the plain white box, so yeah, no big deal. Okay. So the other decks I have, I'm going to talk about the Oracle deck. So this is my only Oracle deck that I have in black and white. It is called the Flowers from the Dead Oracle. I was out in LA with my husband years ago. This is probably an old Oracle deck I've had sitting in my collection for at least 5 years. But we went to LA one time and we were like looking at all of the Halloween shops that they had, and I was like I found like 2 or 3 crystal shops. I think it was around the time when he bought me my my aquamarine ring, so it was for my birthday. And I stumbled upon this deck in one of the crystal shops. So it's called Flowers from the Dead Oracle. It comes in this cute little black tuck box. I don't know, it could have changed. Maybe this is an older edition. But it still has the tag, so I paid $37 for it. And it's really cool. It is all black. So the card backs are all black. These are the 2 title cards that come with it. So you get a cute little spread, and then you get the, you know, the title card for the deck. And the card backs, like I said, they're all black. So I freaking love it. These card backs kind of remind me of the Oracle of Oddities. So if you remember, if you know that deck, how it's kind of like that dark green, but it has like that weird texture to it. So that's kind of how these are. It has like a texture to it, but they're black. And then it's shaped and it feels just like the Oracle of Oddities. So, so if you ever wondered, if you were wondering what kind of cardstock this is, it feels just like the Oracle of Oddities. But it's nice cardstock. I mean, it's not too thin, but it's not too thick, so it's super easy to shuffle. I went through and blacked out the edges of mine, so it looks amazing when you do that. So that's just a little added thing that I did to my little deck mod thing. But basically there are 37. There's 37 cards, and it has the skeleton of an animal. It'll have the number, the name of the animal, and then a couple little prompts at the bottom. So that's what I really thought was cool about this deck, because it has animals, but it's the skeletons. So it's so cool. So it's just different. Like you don't see stuff like that. Kind of spooky. Oh, there are some people in it. So this one is Forgiveness or Sacrifice. I always think like this one looks like Mama Mary. but mostly it's skeletons of animals. You have this one too. This is Diplomacy and Kindness. So there's a couple skeletons in there, but for the most part it is animal skeletons. Creepy, right? It's like the right hint of creepy, but it's not too bad. I love this one. The Walrus, Enlightenment and Faith. So it doesn't have a guidebook. I don't know if you can purchase a guidebook separate. It's an indie deck, so I don't really know too much about it aside from I found it in the crystal shop and I picked it up because I thought it was super cool. So that is the Flowers from the Dead Oracle. I don't know if it's still available. I don't know where you could find it. So do a Google search. Okay. Next, I have a tarot deck that I freaking love. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, I will post every once in a while. I usually like to repost artwork. So there's a certain artist that I absolutely love. She's really well known for a lot of her artwork. It's black and white. She draws it herself. Lots of people get tattoos of her work. And I'm always reblogging her stuff because I find her stuff to be just so, I love the way she draws, and I just love the way that she uses like a mixture of the galaxies, and I love how her people don't have faces. So I'm sure you guys, if you follow me long enough, you probably know who I'm talking about. But that is Broken Isn't Bad. So Broken Isn't Bad. I don't know her first name, unfortunately, and I don't think she has it on her deck. She's very modest with herself. So I just refer to her, I refer to this as the Broken Isn't Bad Tarot because the tarot deck doesn't have a name. It's just tarot deck. So it's just tarot deck. But I refer to it as the Broken Isn't Bad Tarot because that's the creator. But before she came out with the full tarot deck, she came out with a Major Arcana deck. So this one came out, I want to, excuse me, I want to say this came out 2 years ago. I wonder if there's a date on here. I don't think so. I want to say this is 2 years ago. And I remember when she she started putting her artwork on her Instagram, and I was like, that's a tarot card. Like, that's a Major Arcana. And so she ended up announcing that she was going to be coming out with a limited edition of her Major Arcana cards, and I was like, I had to have a deck. So when she came out with it, I was right on it. I purchased it, and it's the most gorgeous deck ever. It's black and white. The card backs look like this. They have the white border, so some people might get a little bit annoyed by that. I don't care. I think it adds to its charm. But basically, you have the galaxies and you have two little moons, two crescent moons. This is the card back of it. The title card talks a little bit about her work. And this is her artwork. So like I said, if you guys follow me, you've seen me reblog or repost her artwork all the time. I freaking love it. So it's naked, it's nudity, but it is absolutely breathtaking. I don't know what it is about her artwork that I just freaking love, but I just can't. And I think this was the card that she posted for the first time. It was the High Priestess. And I was like, that's a tarot card. And so when she had announced that she was coming out with her Major Arcana, I knew I had to get it. So it's beautiful. I absolutely love it. But as you can see, the people, there's animals have faces. But I love that she doesn't put faces to her humans. There's no eyes. They have, you know, there's really nothing. They don't even have mouths. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And I'm obsessed. This is such a gorgeous deck. It's one of those that when I pull it out to work with, people will always ask, what deck is that? And I always feel bad. That's why I'm saying, like, oh, I should have gave a little bit of a warning, which I kind of did. You're going to have deck lust. I don't think that this is available anymore. At least her Major Arcana deck. I think it was like a limited time that she was bringing it out. So you have to check her website. But she goes by Broken Isn't Bad. And you can find her on Instagram. But it's also brokenisn'tbad.com. So this is the card box for the Major Arcana deck. And then the tarot deck came out last year. So it's a funny story. I knew she was coming out with a tarot deck and she would put it in her, and she was very, very like, she didn't like go all out announcing it, right? So she was very like very, I can't even think of the word I'm trying to look for, but she discreet. That's the word I was looking for. She was very discreet when she was announcing when her oracle deck or when her tarot deck was coming out. And so I remember I got the information about it within the comments. Like I would read the comments and that's when she would announce it. So then she had it on her Instagram live, or not her Instagram live, her stories. And I remember I forgot all about it, that deck was coming out that day. And it was literally, I want to say it was like in the evening. And I realized it. And I went on her website and I bought it. I didn't even care. I didn't care how much shipping cost because I believe she's from a different country, if I remember correctly. And I didn't care how much shipping costs. I didn't care, nothing. I was like, nope, I'm paying full dollar for this baby because I knew this one was like a limited edition. I knew this one was going to go. So I was able to get a copy. I was so excited. It comes in this cute little black box. It says tarot deck. It's kind of similar. It's actually very similar to the Major Arcana. I love how you have the little heart. That's her little logo. And it opens from the side like this. Super cute, right? So that is the deck, and these are the card backs. So they're the exact same card backs as the Major Arcana. They have the white borders. And the way these cards feel too, I didn't talk about that, but basically the card stock in these cards, it's like a very matte feeling. It's not shiny at all. They photograph really, really nicely. So it's kind of has a matte feel, but it kind of has like texture to it, like linen matte, if that makes sense. And so anyways, you have the gorgeous artwork. I believe the Major Arcanas are all the same. But then you have full blown, let's fast forward to the minors. You have full blown artwork for each of the Minor Arcana. So I was just like blown away because it's just the same kind of stuff. Like, oh, I'm just obsessed. I love this deck so much. I love it so much. It's so pretty. Whoops. I'll get that after. Look at this. What is this? The Six of Swords. So it kind of follows the Rider-Waite artwork too. Like some of them do, or for the most part, I would say. Look at that Ten of Swords. Oh, I just love it. There's just something about it. I love this. I'll have to do a deck reveal video specifically for this one because it's just so gorgeous. Oh, little baby. That's the 10 of Cups, the pregnancy. That's so precious. So yeah, you guys, this is the Broken Isn't Bad Tarot. At least that's what I call it. I freaking love it. Mental note to get that card that I dropped. And yeah, so that is that. Now, these next two decks that I want to show are, I guess it's just perspective. So some people would say it's not a black and white deck. Some people would say, yes, it is. From my perspective, it's black and white with a hint of color. So I decided to show them in my collection, and that would be the Wild Unknown Tarot. So this is the first edition, the indie version. This is the indie version of the second edition, and then after this one came out, then Kim Krans put out her stuff as a mass market edition. So there's the third, I call it the third edition, but it's mass market, so it's kind of like pretty much the same thing as this guy, but it comes in like a big box, and like the cardstock is a little bit different. So this is the second edition indie version, and then this is the first edition. Freaking love it. So there's some differences in the cards. I'm not going to do a comparison, but basically the backs of the cards are what are majorly different. So this is the first edition, the backs, which I actually prefer this one. I think it's cool. And then this is the second edition card backs. So dizzy images, right? And then the cards themselves are hand-drawn images and pops of color. So throughout the deck, you will have like black and white imagery, and then there's like a pop of color within the cards. Some of them have more color than others, like the Empress has like a, you know, much more pop of color. Some cards have very little. So the Emperor, it's like just the sun has a pop of color. So that's why I kind of consider this deck as a black and white, because some cards don't have any color at all. And it's just the artwork too. Look at this Death card. This is like my favorite card out of the whole deck. I freaking love this. It's so gorgeous. So I've decided to pull this one to go along with this collection, because I would not consider this a full color deck. Not every card is color, and there's just pops of color. So that is the Wild Unknown. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this deck. It is my, what would I call, I would consider the Wild Unknown as kind of like my grieving or my healing deck. It was with me when I was going through some really heavy stuff back in 2016. So this has always been like a very sentimental deck for me. But I find it to be very healing and spiritually, like it just works with the emotions. So, and I like it too because there's no humans in this deck. It's all animals. So who doesn't love just animals, right? So that is the Wild Unknown Tarot. So you guys, that concludes all of my black and white decks in my collection. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was kind of fun to put it together. I wanted to kind of add some fun stuff to my YouTube channel, and I love showing you guys decks that I own. As far as like other decks in the future that I want to get, that are black and white, I know that there's a couple other ones out there, and I definitely want to get my hands on them because I just think that there's just something different about it. But I gotta say, my favorite of the whole bunch, aside from like just freaking loving the artwork of the Broken Isn't Bad, I would have to say the Burt Backer is probably my favorite because it's vintage. But like I said, get yourself, if you guys are wanting a black and white Rider-Waite, get yourself an Absolute Tarot. It's really nice and it's cheap, and it's like support the small biz, right? So anyways, if you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback, please leave it in the comments below. If you want to know where I got some of the decks, I'm gonna put like I'll put the Absolute Tarot and the Broken Isn't Bad information in my description box, but everything else, like Wild Unknown Tarot, you could find it on Amazon. And the Burt Backer, look on eBay. And the flowers from the dead, I'll look up and see if I can find the website, and I'll put that in the description box if I can find it. But Google search, you guys. Anyways, I'm gonna head out. I'm hungry. I want to pick something up to eat, and hubby and I are just going to enjoy the rest of his day off together and do what hubby and wifey things, whatever we do. Anyways, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye, guys.